Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Constitutional Considerations here on Tactical Review. I'm Blair, and joined live from the Oval Office, we have Elias with the Liberty Review podcast. Elias, welcome, and congratulations on your austere digs.
Yeah, exactly. I decided to move up in the world.
So, man, I see we've got 8 people already in the chat. Welcome, everybody. I see Josh and Brownies and Hunts for Life all in there chatting and talking. And if it's your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, I welcome even more, or at least just as much. You guys make the channel what it is. So absolutely, I want you guys chiming in the chat because, yeah, Elias and I can just sit here and talk to each other and not get anywhere. We want to know what you guys have to say as well. And hey, Riemann Scimitar's in too. And while you guys are in and about chatting, don't forget, pop open a new tab and go to bit.ly/TR500GAW and go get yourself signed up for the 500 subscriber giveaway. You guys have gotten me here, and I've got a few goodies to give away. I wish I could say I had cases of ammo to give away, but there'd be some weird legalities with that, and I don't know that anybody has cases of ammo right now. But we'll show you guys, kind of do order of appearance. So I promised that we were giving away a couple of guns at 500 subscribers. And we're giving away a couple Nerf Blast, well, not name brand Nerf, but they are foam dart guns. And these are my practice guns for when I was doing camo paint jobs on the firearms that I've painted. So first off, we have the Urban Multicam right here, and this one's a little unique in that the other side I was also trying a mesh motif. So if you happen to be the winner of either of these guns, if you would like me to repaint the opposite side if you win this one so that it matches, I will. As much as I love you guys, I am not going to do the digicam motif that I ended up going with on the gun that this was a practice for. That's just labor intensive. We also have the, I don't know exactly what to call this. I'm going to call it desert pattern. It wasn't meant to be desert, but I feel like it kind of turned out desertish. So with this one, if you are the winner of this particular item, if you would rather me redo this with the sea sponge paint job that I went with on the Palmetto State Armory GF3 AK-47, I absolutely would do that for you. So there's that, and I'm not sure what happened, but Elias ended up crammed over.
We're downsizing here.
I guess.
You put the Libertarian in the Oval Office, and you finally start cutting the budget.
You know, this is just what happens when this is open source software for you guys. It's the power of open source, and well, Elias knows. Elias knows how the rest of that saying goes.
They're family friendly.
Well, we'll get this fixed. We'll get you back to full size here momentarily, Elias. Whoops.
I just figured it was the YouTube algorithm.
Well, that could be too. Technical difficulties, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, OBS Studio is great software for what it is, but it does glitch on occasion. There we go. It's not 1-to-1, but
More conservative, exactly. Why are we going to waste the
yes, yes. All right. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Giveaway prizes. And then 2 lucky winners will also, or will win channel logo t-shirts. A smarter host would be wearing the t-shirt to demonstrate. But, you know, you got to take what you can get. Let's, here you go. I'll just throw this up on the screen there, and I'm giving away 2 of the shirt on the right. So, and obviously those shirts I will order after the winners are selected, so I can order them in your size, and then I'll have those drop shipped straight to you. So those will be subject to Teespring's printing turnaround. But there we go. So yeah, make sure if you're not signed up for the giveaway yet, get over there, get signed up. We will be doing the drawing live 2 weeks from tonight. So the giveaway time ends right as we would go live. And so then while we're on air, I will go ahead and generate the winners. And I'm just going to, actually, I'm using Gleam. I think Gleam, I'm just going to click draw winners, and it will assign a winner to each prize. So fully random, as fair as I can make it. Yeah, there we go. So Poor Conservative in the chat, welcome. Patsy. Yeah. Elias is definitely in the Oval Office. I'm not sure how we negotiated that, but I'd vote for you.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought about
you could.
I thought about writing you in 4 years ago. I'm not gonna lie.
There you go. You could do worse. In fact, chances are you will.
And we certainly have. I won't even say which presidency I'm talking about. I'll let you guys all fill in the blanks.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Let me just drop the... I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Well, if I can type. There you guys go. The link is in the chat, and that will take you to the sign up page for the giveaway. And you know, let's just drop it in the description here too. All right, there we go. Poor Conservative, Obama, W. Bush, Clinton. I'm not necessarily going to argue with you, so. All right, there we go. So link in the chat, link also in the description. You guys can get signed up, give away some goodies, and if you don't win this time, or not signing up because you don't like the prizes, we'll do another one at the 1,000 subscriber mark. I can't believe that I'm at the 500 subscriber mark. It astounds me. Thank you guys. You're amazing, and wouldn't be here without you guys.
It'll get to a point where it'll start getting exponential.
I noticed that actually, because I remember one of my students has a YouTube channel, and I really figured that his would take off, and his would be something that YouTube would monetize, because he just does little like 10-second video. Honestly, he was doing TikTok videos before TikTok was a thing, and he was doing them on YouTube. Just dumb little 10 to 30-second videos. And I remember last fall he had more subscribers than I did, and then, but it was just in March I hit the 250 mark, and yeah, here we are, already over 500. So all right, well, on to the meat and potatoes here tonight. And as you guys see from the title, we're just kind of gonna bounce some ideas around and talk about what we think, see what you guys think. But as I look at events unfolding and the violence that is occurring, and I really believe much of it very maliciously planned to be just as disruptive as it is, we're pondering the question, are we headed with imminence towards a second American Civil War? And I guess I'd like to start with, I'm not crazy enough or stupid enough to be hoping that that's what we're seeing. This is still somewhat academic. Well, unless something changes in the next 45 minutes, this is all entirely academic right now. But we just want to get some of those mental juices flowing. And unfortunately, if that's the direction we're headed, when you look at all of the other surrounding situations, it is far very late to try to start prepping. But here we are.
Maybe too late, but at the same time not too late. You can still do something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like saying, well, it's too late to buy a gun. No, it's not too late to buy a gun. It might be too late to be exceptionally picky about caliber or brand, or maybe model. I'd still be picky to a degree if it was my first and only firearm. Although usually when it's somebody's first firearm, they're going to make a mistake in what they get. I think it's pretty typical. You know, oh, so-and-so on the internet has this gun and has 1 million rounds in it. Right.
We'll see, and that's the other thing. Might be a little bit too late for ammo at reasonable prices.
Oh, it's way too late for that. If you still want ammo at something close to reasonable, you're gonna have to get, for a handgun, in my area, you better buy 40 caliber or 10 millimeter. And ammo was never exceptionally reasonably priced for either of those, but it's pretty close to normal. That's a big part of the reason that I converted my Glock 22, or excuse me, my Glock 23. I dropped in a 9mm conversion barrel, was because of how much less expensive 9mm was to shoot than 40 caliber. And then right now, the Russian calibers are still running somewhat close to normal. I just looked up 545 by 39 because somebody really has an itch for a PSA K74, and it is running about half the cost of 223 currently. So, at least at the national level. Again, what you can find locally will change. When I can find ammo in stock at Rural King or about said Fleet Supply, it hasn't been that in decades. Stock and Field, formerly Big R. It's within 5 cents of what they were charging back in February. So I think that they are simply still just charging their normal markup, and that difference is the difference in what they're paying. So, Riemann, I didn't look at 54R, but if you don't usually use it, I highly recommend ammoseek.com. So, all right. So let's actually start kind of unpacking this. For one thing, I am fairly convinced that what we're seeing at the national level are Marxist, what the Marxist plan or timeline. We're in the phase that they call struggle sessions. I'm going to see if I can find their kind of how-to outline. But from Wikipedia, a struggle session is a form of public humiliation and torture used by the Chinese Communist Party the victim of a struggle session was forced to admit various crimes before a crowd of people who would verbally and physically abuse the victim until he or she confessed. Of course, that's not the oh, sure. We're seeing that kind of thing at an individual level on the national stage. But there's...
It's not sponsored, but it's
still... there is a force, and now I can't... Of course I can't find what I'm looking for. Tell you what. This would be a great place to start a YouTube channel. Hi. Where'd we? No. Thought Marxist stage. Thought the Marxist stage theory was what I was looking for, and that's. There we go. So we are. I knew I mixed up my terms. Okay, so Marxism in 5 easy steps. Step 1, from critic to radical Democrat. Step 2, a class with radical chains. Step 3, class struggle and revolution. And I think that's kind of where we are hovering. Step 4 says harder than it looks, and step 5, taking power for ourselves, which sounds fantastic on paper. But anyway, so I think that we have political groups, okay? I know from observation we have political groups in the nation who are intentionally inciting that class struggle. And we have other groups that have, I'd say, more or less legitimate complaints. Elias and I have actually voiced similar either complaints or concerns in several of our live streams. But then there are those Marxist-backed powers who are subverting the people with legitimate complaint. And
well,
no, go ahead.
Well, that's the thing is there is this idea out there that the media will push and groups will push that this is a grassroots movement, when in reality it isn't. And all the signs are there that there's somebody behind all of these riots and all of these different things that are actually pushing this more, that's actually inciting this. This is not a grassroots thing. This isn't a whole bunch of people that decided we need to overthrow the government right now.
Yeah.
This is somebody who is using opportunities to push an agenda.
Yeah, here's the thing. If it was grassroots, we wouldn't see tens of thousands of dollars of like pallets of bricks suddenly appearing conveniently when there is a protest scheduled. We wouldn't see people being bailed out by shadowy benefactors after committing heinous felonies.
People have been bussed in.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not. Yeah, that doesn't fit the definition of grassroots at all.
It's too early in to be this coordinated, so it has to be somebody who's actually orchestrating it.
And some of the places where we are seeing actual political backing from the powers that be, or a refusal to denounce, that just shows a lot more coordination. So, right. But that's still just civil unrest. That by itself is not what concerns me that in my lifetime all pretense of peace will evaporate. But Elias, you've mentioned on several occasions some parallels with civil wars that you've studied over these last few weeks. You want to dig into that a little bit?
Well, one of the big things that concerns me is how wars can start by accident. One of the ones that I highlighted was the Lebanese Civil War in 1975, where it was an accidental shooting. There were some parallels in you had the picture, I think it was the last time we were on, of in Indianapolis, where protesters had blocked the road,
right,
and a truck was trying to go through. And it kind of reminded me of what happened in Beirut, where a group of, it wasn't even a protest, it was just a group of militia had closed off part of the road because of a church service, and a bus going back with some armed fighters didn't want to go around. They just decided they wanted to go through. They didn't want to go around. They get into an argument. There's no firing at this point. There's no violence. They're just arguing about it. One group saying go a different way, the other group saying no, we want to go this way, which is a lot of what we've seen in some of these cities so far.
Right.
An accidental shot goes off and shoots the bus driver. People freak out. Everybody kind of disperses. Allies of the people on that bus come back a couple hours later, or a couple minutes later rather, and shoot a few people dead. I think it was like 3 or 4 dead. That pretty much sparked a civil war that lasted for, what was that, 15 years. World War I started off with an assassination.
Right.
An assassination. One no-name guy shoots a member of royalty. Next thing you know, the entire world is in a war. The point being that these things can start off as your peaceful protest. A few people are mad. An accident happens that goes off. Or in the case of like another aspect of it in the Lebanese Civil War was that foreign powers were interfering to kind of stir the flames, to fan the flames rather. And that's the kind of thing you can see now. You can see the rhetoric all over the place of people trying to push it more.
Right. Right. Well, and it wasn't in the same city, but here in the last couple of weeks, we see a situation where a young man was in a different city, and from a lot of reports was there to do good, to offset the destruction being committed, ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time in a fight for his life, and then several days later, somewhat in response maybe, there's a Trump rally in an embattled city, and a man is shot dead for wearing a MAGA hat.
And that's how these kind of things can start. There's a tit for tat that starts going on. One side starts doing something, the other side starts doing something, and it just escalates to the point where you can't stop it. And that's a lot of times it's not really so much a thing of a civil war starts by a group of people going, okay, we're going to go raid.
Right.
The White House or Congress or the Capitol, and there are some that do start off that way, but a lot of them don't start off that way. It happens down on the street level until there comes a point where you can't stop it anymore. And that's been one of my big concerns, is that we're going to get to a point where we can't stop it,
right?
Because nobody's thinking level-headed, or you do have people who are pushing.
Right. It's absolutely in favor of the statist-minded people for this to devolve to a point where either, in the eyes of the left-leaning, that they can sweep things away, have a communist revolution like what we've seen in several countries through the last 100 years, or B, where federal forces are mobilized and the country is turned into a big police state, and then we go to a full-on well, it's already an oligarchy. We've discussed that. But even more so a defined oligarchy or dictatorship or something to that level. And so this is where, once again, I point out both sides of the aisle have people who think that way. The very far left, the very far right. And I think it's safe to say that the further up in the political chain, probably the more likely, and this is a hasty generalization, I'm painting with a broad brush, but I think that the further up the chain you get, the more likely you are to see people who have had a taste of power and will do everything to keep said power.
Corrupts. And you're right. It really doesn't matter, and again, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying, where it can be an accident or it can be, fanned. There are people on both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter, who would love to be able to have an excuse for a crackdown.
Yes.
And they just have different reasons for it. And anybody, in my opinion, and if I offend people, if you can't see that, if you are so blinded by the idea of conservatives would never do that, liberals would never do that, don't think of the parties as conservative or liberal. That's gone. They're both about the same at this point. Whether it's Republican, it's Democrat. If you can't see that both sides will do this and have made moves to that, then you aren't seeing what's really happening.
Right.
There's been a lot over the years of, Republicans would never do that kind of thing. Well, it was Republican president that signed the Patriot Act. It was a Democrat president who was authorizing hits from drones. It really doesn't matter. Either side is going to do
right.
it. We had President Trump just a couple weeks ago sending federal forces in to police the streets, something that the courts have upheld for pretty much the entire length of this country, that falls under the 10th Amendment and belongs to the locals.
Well, even more importantly, was sending in, once again, independent or civilian contractors, not even federal forces.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter which side of it is at this point. Whether it's Trump or it's Biden, it doesn't really matter. The end result can easily be the same. It just might look slightly different.
So,
on what they choose to enforce. And that's about it. For instance, you might have one side that enforces not recognizing some gender pronoun as being a crime, thought crime. Whereas the other side, you're going to have that if you don't, follow along with exactly what federal police tell you, you're going straight to prison for political crimes. It doesn't really matter. Both sides are going to do something.
Yeah. So...
And they keep pushing this idea, because what they're going to do right now is tell each side the other one is against you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's... And both sides are going to reinforce. I mentioned this the other day, and I love the fact that my viewers, you guys all have your own opinion. You guys all think through and you process, and you take what Elias and I say and you add that to the data you have, and then you use that. I don't see a lot of echo chamber over in the chat, and I love that. And that's why I've been sharing things like both sides. Both sides will tell you, well, if you vote X, it's actually a vote for my opponent. And in the end, that may appear that way. But if an individual running for office loses, then they didn't do enough of their part to earn the votes that were spent on a third party.
Right.
And
that's really what it comes down to. It's a gaslighting that's been going on for a long time. The fact of the matter is that if you think some people voting for a third party is going to take votes away from you, that means you're sending the wrong message. that obviously you are not resonating. And what it means is you're not resonating with your own party, or people who lean your way. For instance, the argument that if you vote third party, Trump's going to win. That means that you obviously are not appealing to the liberals in the country enough. If you are saying that you vote third party, you're going to let Biden win, that means Trump is not doing his job convincing conservatives and more libertarian-minded that he is going to do the right thing in their mind. So it's not a failing on you, the voter. It's a failing on that candidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until we actually decide that we're going to start voting third party and make it matter, it's going to stay a two-party system, because they've both managed to convince everybody that. And so it becomes we're voting against a person instead of for.
And poor conservative, that's very possibly a good point. Most third-party voters are anti-establishment. And that could be. And the flip side is, I think that the current establishment is driving more individuals to that place. I know a lot of people who are left of center. We agree on some points, individual gun ownership and things like that, but disagree where it comes to financial and social programs. And that's fine, but those individuals feel absolutely disenfranchised by the ticket that the Democratic Party has put together.
Yep.
I think that most of us who are involved with this stream right now, those of you in the chat have voiced this, Elias and I have voiced this. I absolutely feel that President Trump has not held to the campaign promises that he made to the Second Amendment community. And,
And it's just among the many promises he hasn't
kept. Right. But that's especially on a channel like this. Yeah. So.
But on a channel like this, I mean, that's,
And so, and I don't think, I guess what I'm not saying is, though we're talking November and polling and everything, I'm not saying that I think that the Republican and Democrat tickets being presented are what will be running us towards a civil war. Although, I think that it has become so polarized that maybe it would be.
Well, and that's the thing. In 2016, Clinton pretty much sealed her fate when she decided to call Trump supporters deplorable. That was a big turning point in Trump's campaign. Because what people saw was, instead of her reaching out and saying, we're all in this together, this is not the right candidate, this is not the person to lead America, she just went ahead and categorized them all. Trump has had a little bit more success with his let me attack everybody on the other side, but the fact is that's still what it is, and people endured it for 2016, and I'm not so sure they're going to endure it for 2020. Biden came out the other day and pretty much implied that anybody who would vote for Trump is a white supremacist.
Right.
Well,
are you sure that's what he was implying?
Nobody.
Could you understand what he was implying?
Never what it has to do with Biden. But the fact is, he said something to the effect of, on our side we've got this, and on that side is supremacist and racist, and like, okay. Neither side is willing to actually say, hey, we're all Americans, we're all in this together, let's calm this down, let's talk, let's actually fix this. Instead, it's still a repeat of, let me just attack the other side.
Right.
And as Swiffer said, we're sitting on a power keg, and nobody seems to want to actually push us off of the powder keg. Instead, they just want to get the flame closer and closer.
Yeah. Instead, we're sitting up here playing with fireworks on the powder keg.
Yeah, we're playing. They're handing us the fireworks in the powder keg instead of saying, "Hey, hold up, let's get off this thing and talk about this." And it's both sides, Republican and Democrat, just attacking each other, and it's getting worse and worse over the years.
And Hunts for Life, that's exactly the ticket. We were actually, Elias and I, there's another thing Man, I do sound like Biden tonight. Let me finish a statement. There was another situation that arose today that tied in, or that ties in with this concept of, are we escalating towards a breaking point? And that was this evening, just a couple hours ago, I saw a story that President Trump has started exploring pulling federal funding from 4 cities that are not doing anything or not doing any kind of effective job at stemming the violence running rampant in their streets.
And that's his opinion. Let's just clarify real quick. In his opinion. I'm not saying they aren't, but I do want to put that kind of qualifier because Trump has threatened this the entire time he's been president for things he doesn't like. So,
right. So, with that in mind, one thing that I had said, because I've got the article pulled up here, there were some numbers that just flabbergasted me. And one of them was that there were billions of dollars sent to New York City a year.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a failing on the part of we the people, that we have allowed the federal government to get so big that they are even in a position to offer billions of dollars of federal money to a city.
Yep.
Oh,
absolutely. I mean, and at this point, it shouldn't be. We should not be giving that much money to a city, and it's kind of all the cities that are getting funds. For some reason, we send all the money up to the federal government, and the excuse is, well, if we pull it all together, well, let the states handle it. If the states need money, they can do their own taxes.
right.
Why are we taking all this money and then reallocating it to the states? If the states need the money, let them raise their own taxes. I mean, California has got high tax rates, and they can't, half the time they can't pay refunds on taxes because they spend so much. New York has the same problem.
Right.
Meanwhile, states like Texas, who have no income tax, and they don't seem to have a problem. So there's a big mismanagement of money going on.
Right. And that's and that's something I hear or read frequently. We want, whether it's universal health care, we want this social program, that social program, pick one. And then the argument is because non-socialist minded people say, well, where's the money going to come from? And so then the response is, well, you numpty, the money's already there. I want my tax dollars spent on that instead of buying more bombs that we're going to drop in the Middle East. And, this whole imperialistic idea is a completely different subject. My problem is, I don't want the federal government having that much of my money in the first place. If we need those social programs at a local level, then if we're not going to have charitable organizations whose mission statements say that they should be taking care of the poor and the orphan and the widows, looking at our churches across America there, then it should be the local governments that, if that kind of thing is necessary, the local governments should be taking care of it. You don't like socialism, but you sure like having those streets. Well, I don't know about where you guys live, but the highways in Indiana suck. So, that's a.
You could put the Michigan.
That's a terrible example.
But it does put the power in the states where it belongs.
Right.
Where if the states want to raise taxes, great. I'm not going to go live in California where you need $500,000 so that you can buy a bungalow.
Yeah.
But a poor conservative, you are right. Trump does not hold the purse strings. The president can't withhold funds.
Right. So
Yeah, he used to be able to, but the court struck that down, and then Congress actually passed an act saying the most he can do is ask Congress to withhold funds.
right. Sorry, I'm reading through the chat here.
Fine.
Food for You said 36 gangs went on record saying they're looking for an officer with a sidearm drawn. Yeah, that sounds about right. Democrats throwing the election, that way they can get their agenda passed with no. I could see that.
Yeah, I actually had not considered that, but that's a good point.
My big fear all along.
Especially when we're dealing with someone who used to be a registered
That's
Democrat.
exactly where I was going. My fear all along is that Trump is an old school New York Democrat. And I'm afraid that if he wins the election, which is looking pretty, I mean, it's not over till it's over. Everybody was convinced that Hillary had won 4 years ago. But if he wins the election, I'm afraid that at that point, with nothing to lose, he's going to show true colors, which we've seen shades of with things like the bump stock ban and whatnot. Yeah. Anyway, and you're absolutely right, Braster. There are absolutely Trump thumpers out there who swear that he is the second coming of Christ and is just the best thing to ever sit in the Oval Office, and yeah, he can't do no wrong, his crap don't stink. Sunshine and roses right there. So yeah. Anyway, Warsaw, yeah, and as Elias acknowledged, the president himself cannot hold the purse strings.
I don't see how the FBI can either.
Wait, that should be the Treasury Department.
Well, I would imagine that there's got to be certain criteria that Congress has passed to allow that. They can't you can't withhold it because Trump doesn't like something one of the states has done. You know, whether it has to do with illegal immigration or whatever. I imagine there has to be certain criteria there for the FBI, not just, well, yeah, FBI is federal, but so is the president. The president still, and the FBI works for the president. They're part of the executive branch. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that there's probably very, very narrow criteria that Congress has authorized FBI to withhold, but they can't just do it because he wants to. And the courts have ruled that the president can't withhold just to spite Congress or to spite the states. There has to be a legitimate reason. So that'd be interesting. I think I'm gonna have to look into that because now I'm curious as to what that criteria would be. But I do know that there's no way that they can just withhold it because they feel like it. There has to be some kind of criteria.
Right. Now, what was laid forth in that article that I linked, and maybe we're getting in the weeds, but that's okay. We'll leave it in the weeds.
It all kind of ties together because this is part of what is that powder keg is how this country has gotten to this point.
But New York City, for instance, has had a 177% spike in shootings in July 2020 compared to July 2019. Now, I'm curious how that happens because with all their gun laws, nobody could be shot in New York City because nobody has guns, right? Because gun laws work. Anyway, New York City cut $1 billion from the New York Police Department's $6 billion annual budget, eliminated $537 million in capital spending, which also included not hiring new police officers. Of course, other cities, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and Washington, D.C., actually. So, and all four of those places, they've been in national news for months now, a couple of them. So, I'd say that there is some truth to the fact that there is nothing being done to curtail a criminal element. The question becomes, can Trump do what he wants to do? Elias, I see you talking, but I don't hear anything, bud. Hello? We've lost audio with Elias. Still nothing. I'm not sure what's happened there. All right. Well, when Elias comes back in, he'll cut back in. Technology is a great thing, guys and gals. And poor conservative, yeah. All of these locations are deeply blue. It seems like that can't really be a coincidence, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, Elias is just beatboxing. Well, if you've got...
Yeah, how
hey,
about now?
we've got you back.
There. Does it finally come back?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
come back.
I unplugged it, plugged it back in, restarted it. So, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, but despite the crime, again, you know, Trump can't withhold funds because he's not allowed to. All he can do is ask Congress
Right.
to. And whether he thinks the crime is out there or not, it doesn't matter. That falls under the 10th Amendment. And there's very, very narrow criteria that the president can ever send in, say, forces or anything like that. Like what we saw in Portland was completely unconstitutional. And it's being challenged in the courts, and I'm hoping the courts do the right thing. I won't go too much, in the weeds on this one. I'm actually getting a podcast ready that's going to talk about all this kind of thing. When it comes to court cases where the Supreme Court has said straight out, the federal government cannot do local policing, period. They're not authorized to do that. So while I like the idea of the cities not getting the funding, I'm all for that. I don't think any of the cities should get federal funding. If you need the money, raise the taxes and hope that people won't move out because you got dumb on your spending. But when it comes to a sense of legality, it's just he can't do it. It's not legal.
And there's an important distinction that you just mentioned. So sending the federal forces in, whatever form they were taking, sending the federal forces to Portland. Do I think that the rioting needs curtailed? Yes, I do. Do I think that any U.S. citizen should ever fear being grabbed by ununiformed individuals and bound and gagged and thrown into a windowless van? No, I don't. That is Soviet Russia policies. And so
that's what the courts are for.
Right.
If the government thinks that the cities and the states, then take them to court. Charge them against their own state constitution.
Right.
Let the judicial process do its job. And Lincoln tried during the Civil War to invoke martial law and try people under a military tribunal, try civilians. And the Supreme Court slammed them, saying you can't do that. The judicial process still works. The courts are still operating. That's what they're there for.
Which, let's face it, Trump very famously said, take the guns first and due process later. So in his mind, there is no room for due process, but that is that is what it is.
You get that for vandalizing federal property when they're actually patrolling federal property. Going 5 miles away and snatching random people who they admitted later they didn't really know if they were even there, that's not patrolling federal property anymore. I have no problem with them standing on federal property to protect it. That's federal property. Those are federal agents. Great. But going 5 miles out of the way, especially when you don't even know when somebody was involved with it and just picking up random people, no, that's not enforcing the law at that point.
Right.
That's turning it into a police state.
So, yeah, I guess...
Just my opinion.
Right, yeah, and once again, I don't agree with the statues being pulled down. I'm in the very center of a Venn diagram that's kind of fed up with it all.
I stand on the side of what the law is.
Let me off this ride 2020.
Let the right people do what they're supposed to do. You can't violate the law because, they shouldn't have done that. Well, we still have a law to follow. And if we don't have the law to follow, then at this point, any of us can get picked up for any reason.
Right.
Doing this live stream can get us picked up.
And that's...
Because at that point, we decide to throw it all out.
That's the danger of saying, I support that in this instance,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's kind of the whole judge not lest ye be judged, by the same judgment you pass on another. I guess that's the best way to sum it up, and we'll drop some Bible in here. Because it's just like red flag laws. The Republicans who support red flag laws, like I know people locally that support red flag laws because the way they were presented was in a positive light.
Right.
But the problem is they're so nebulous that it's very easy then for them to be turned against law-abiding citizens. And we've had several live streams about that.
It's the reason why the Fourth Amendment, we can't sit here and say that we're supporters of the Fourth Amendment unless I really know that guy did something wrong. So then violate the Fourth Amendment. It's the reason why criminals, people who have been guilty, have been let off on technicalities, quote unquote, technicalities, because the proper channels were not taken, or the proper steps were not taken for search and seizure.
Right.
And yeah, that guy got off, but you can't sit there and say, well, let the cops violate the Fourth Amendment for him, but as long as they don't come and do it to me. The framers felt that it was better for a couple of criminals to get off than to allow innocent people to be bullied by the government.
Right. So, and again, no system is perfect. No opinion is perfect. I mean, that's where...
Except mine. I'll throw you off there for a second.
I hold my own in pretty high regard, but I'm constantly challenged, and that's not a bad thing. That's how we grow as people. So, to put a definitive answer on tonight's topic, we cannot. I am... Fearful is not the right word. Concerned. Concerned is the right word.
Yep.
That within my lifetime, we are going to see very disrupted. The country we know, I fear, will no longer be.
Right.
Which may be for the better in the long run, but obviously in the short term will not be for those who experience that. And I maintain my position with Edward Payne, I think. I don't remember who I'm quoting. But if trouble must come, let it come in my day, that my children may know peace. So basically, be preparing. At very worst, especially if you're a gun guy or a gun gal, you're going to enjoy the hunting and the shooting that you're able to do with the items that you prepare. But if so, it's a case of it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
The thing that, so there are actually two models that both predicted a few years ago the unrest today. When they were applied to things like the Civil War, the Great Depression, they were accurate. Looking when they gathered data from a few years prior to that, both those models are showing civil war in the next 10 to 15 years.
Which is,
however, these are models that were created by men and can be wrong. Having said that, I think that if we don't figure out how to turn this ship right now, we're going to slam right into the iceberg. It's right in front of us, but if we don't turn it, we are going to slam in the iceberg because there's nowhere else to go.
yeah.
And that takes the people. Give up the government. They're not going to do it. They're just not. They're going to keep fanning the flames because they want. I'll say it right here. They want chaos. They want civil war because it allows them to further their agenda.
Absolutely.
Power. It allows them to further their agenda of power and to tighten the grip. Whether you believe in everything at face value, or you are all the way tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, it doesn't matter. Either way, there's somebody who wants more power.
Yep.
And it's going to take the people to actually stop the fighting and it's going to take all of us stop putting all of our trust into the government.
Absolutely. I trust the government to do what's best for the government, and not at all to do what's best for me. And so that is my answer every time somebody, once again, every time somebody is wanting more and more social programs, I'd be a lot more fine with it if you find somebody else to administer it other than the government. So, that is a great thing. Number one, I appreciate the vote of confidence there, Joe. But make sure you aren't among those pushing the divide. It's so easy to be divisive. And probably, no, definitely, I share some things that are a little incendiary or a lot incendiary. You know, I'm going to call it driving engagement. Anyway, but I think it's important to, as often as you can, be a uniter, not a divider. With that said, there are certain ideologies that are irreconcilable. Pure communism is irreconcilable with the United States of America. I mean, it truly is absolutely antithetical. Brain no work.
Yep.
But it's the complete opposite of everything that this country was founded on.
Really, almost any ism is. Communism, socialism, fascism.
Yeah.
Even capitalism, the way we do capitalism, is really corporate capitalism. Yeah. Excuse me, corporate capitalism. And he's absolutely right. It is possible to unite while disagreeing. We can sit here and disagree. I can sit there and say that I don't think this group over here is right, while also recognizing their right to protest, which is, you know, we've done in the past. Not the rioters, but when it comes to the protest, I don't necessarily agree with some of the things protesters are protesting about. But you know what? Okay, go protest.
Yeah.
First Amendment applies to me and applies to you.
That's something I've said to my athletes and the young people that I'm around on a regular basis. We have lost the ability in this country to disagree respectfully.
Yeah.
And that's accelerating. I'm sure that it is a symptom of this mass media interconnected World Wide Web society. But we can no longer, on the whole, we can no longer say, I completely disagree with what you're saying, but I completely respect your right to have the opinion. And it's shameful. Yeah. It's shameful, but that's why you see so many comments about how the left, they are the party of love and toleration, as long as you think exactly the way they do.
As long as you agree 100% with them. I mean, they'll eat their own for not 100% agreeing.
But the fact of the matter is that the right side of the aisle is equally as guilty. And maybe to a different degree. I don't know. Once again, I really in these live streams, I try to be as fair and balanced as I can be. But obviously I'm rather right leaning, if you can't tell. So but that isn't to say that I don't do my best to, once again, at least respect differing opinions. So,
you know, I'll say this way, you know, 62 days. I've said it before, and it's going to be I'm going to beat on this drum until it happens. But in 62 days, we get to overthrow the government. I would prefer to overthrow the government and get people in there that actually care about bringing people together than to just kind of let it ride and let's go into a full civil war.
Yep.
I don't know about y'all, but
Yep.
but I really have little hope of that happening because, well, people are going to vote in the incumbents just like they always do, and we'll inch closer because those incumbents will just keep kind of pushing this whole thing. So
yeah, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But once again, it's the time to certainly be researching all of your candidates locally. You have the time to do that now, and be preparing to exercise your right to vote, whether you think it's going to do any good or not. Even if you feel like at the federal level it doesn't make any difference, absolutely be voting at the local level. So,
and you actually point out a really good thing. Local level is extremely important.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's say worst case scenario, federal government falls, and the states start kind of breaking up, local communities start banding together. Make sure it's a local community and state government you actually want. A lot of times people will just completely disregard the local elections and they only focus on the president and maybe Congress, and then just kind of whatever with the rest of them. But don't do that. Make sure all the way from the president, congressional, all the way down to who's going to be on your city council. That's all important stuff. And if anything does go wrong, those guys, at least in the interim, are probably going to be in charge. You're going to see some places that just kind of, secede and declare their own little mini government for a while. So make sure it's somebody you actually want.
Right. Well, yeah, you ignore your local elections at your own peril. Don't believe us? Ask Virginia. And I'm not saying that was ignored. I'm not saying that was ignored elections, but went deep blue, and now look at the fight the gun owners in Virginia have.
Yeah. I don't know if we're conservative. I mean, in 1776, it worked out pretty well. Just something to think about.
There's some truth on both sides, and that's the thing.
No, and I definitely get what he means of that, and that's one of the arguments is if you vote out people who have been doing it and you get all new people who come in who don't know what they're doing. Yeah, and I'm not really sure if we know which one's worse at this point.
Well, 4 years ago, one of the biggest draws that Donald Trump had for me personally was the fact that he was not a career politician. And I got to say, he picked up the game with the best of them.
Oh, he did. Very, very quickly picked up the game.
Of course, the flip side is he was a career businessman. I won't say good, bad, or otherwise. And at those levels, I'd say business and politics play a lot alike.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
All right, guys and gals. If you didn't get any other answers from tonight, make sure that if you don't have, that you do obtain some sort of semi-reliable firearm and some ammunition for it. Godspeed to you if you don't have that. But even if nothing goes sideways, that's something that's always something you're gonna. I'm not gonna say that you always need, but God help you if you need it and don't have it. So.
And if nothing happens, it'll just be for a really fun range day.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
So, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Once again, if you would like to help support the channel, well, the very first thing you can do is if you haven't hit that thumbs up button, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. If you really disliked what we had to say, hit that thumbs down. I'll let you in on a little secret. That still helps the algorithm. Throw some comments in. Be sharing the channel videos. I know you guys are doing that because that's why we've got that 500 subscriber giveaway going on. Make sure you hit that link in the description below and get signed up for the giveaway. If you'd like to help the channel a little bit more directly, you can do that over at the merchandise store. Pick you up some t-shirts or stickers or coffee cups, and the channel will get a few dollars from each of those purchases. And if you really are in a position that you'd like to help out and you have some extra money to do so, you can swing over either to Patreon or to Subscribestar, and you can sign up and become a direct supporter of the channel. And the channel gets, well, all but the platform's percentage off of those. I really appreciate my Patreon supporters. You guys through the last year and a half or so have helped buy optics and ammunition and stuff. Of course, right now ammunition is scarce for everybody, but you guys help out in an immense way. I really appreciate you guys. If you're not following the channel over on social media, that is a thing that you should be doing. That is Tactical Review 2019 on Facebook and Instagram, at least until I find myself zucked. But for right now, you can still catch me over there and just share all sorts of stuff. Sometimes behind the scenes things, sometimes it's political in nature, sometimes it's just kind of what I've been trying to do to better myself mentally, physically, as a father, protector, and friend. While you're over in social media land, head over to Facebook and check out Elias's page at Liberty Review 1776. And
yes, you remembered it because I never do.
yeah, it's, you know, that was a good year. Actually, truthfully, that was probably a pretty terrible year. It's good for us today. And you said you're working on some new recording?
Yeah, should be recording hopefully tomorrow, and have it out sometime this weekend. The hardest part is doing the research.
Yep, so make sure that is libertyreview1776.com, or you can pick it up wherever you obtain your podcasts. So, or on YouTube, right? You're uploading to YouTube now?
Yeah.
Right.
I hope you're not going to ask me what the name of that is.
Well, they can just click your name over in chat.
Hey, there you go. Do that.
So
do the lazy thing for me.
I'm a big fan. It's not lazy, it's efficient.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Elias, Brownie says you need an Instagram.
Look, we've been over this. All right. I've made that very clear. I'm not a 14-year-old girl. Blair, I'm not saying anything about you. I understand it's 2020 and you can be whatever you want now, but...
Stop it. No, I find my blood pressure stays lower when I stay on Instagram, because my only Instagram is just the channel Instagram, and so I have only followed other YouTubers, some of my awesome fans. I've followed you guys back, and industry, you know, like Brownells and Midwest Industries. So my Instagram feed is my Instagram feed is an echo chamber, and I'm okay with that because it's soothing. Because my echoes are the sounds of an indoor gun range.
So it's my understanding. I don't know how well Instagram would work for me anyway, because isn't it mostly pictures?
That's a good point.
And you know, for me, it's a political podcast. I mean, I can do pictures of the Constitution over and over again, but I think people are gonna get bored with that.
I think what you'd have to do is do screenshots of major news stories, which would put you trolling the mainstream media a lot more than is healthy.
I mean, that could be fun. That could be fun. But I will say that somebody asked about it last time, SoundCloud, and I'm going to try that out for this one. So I'm going to publish it on SoundCloud also, and maybe on Facebook is where I'll actually put the link for that once I figure out how to do that. So go to Facebook and like it. There you go.
Awesome.
I figured out a way.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, once again, we appreciate you tuning in tonight. Appreciate you giving us about an hour of your time. I've got videos in the works. Had to wait on some replacement parts and time. Does anybody know where I can buy more time? If you find that place, you will be a wealthy individual just for leading people there. So anyway, many more videos in the works. So thanks for joining, and until next time, shoot straight, stay safe.